great to be here. I'm from Software Center, that is a research consortium of about 14 companies and 5 universities, mostly in Sweden, but we also have companies from Denmark and Germany. And we have different themes where we do our research, and within the themes there are projects. And one of the projects we are running is called Project 18, Visualization of Continuous Integration. And we have normally had people from Ericsson, Axis, company called Grundfos in Denmark. They are interested, but so far they haven't tipped over. And I try to remind them once in a while. And then we also know that parts of Volvo AB are on off there. We also have observers at a company called Eiffel that is also in Denmark, but they are, I think, a little bit working with too much manual things right now, but we will persuade them to do some more automated continuous integration scheme. They are a little bit special due to requirements from the customers, of course. They are not stubborn or old-fashioned. My name is Kristian Sandahl, and I'm professor of software engineer at Linköping University. I'm also the theme leader for continuous delivery, even though we are mostly dealing with automated testing. With me, I also have Asim Ahmad, who is a former PhD student of mine and now a part-time postdoc, and but mostly working at Ericsson in Linköping. So I will tell you a little bit about some ideas and history about visualization projects. I'm going to talk much more about information needs and a little bit into process mining, an area where we are thinking of making a little project together. So if we go for the visualization part, we were instrumental in creating a tool called Vici that is available on the store. But to run it against the MongoDB, we also have a spin-off there called Eiffel Store. I don't know if you have seen it before, but we use different symbols for different types of events. This is an aggregated view. So here you can see artifacts, builds, artifacts created, test suites running. Can even see some kind of progress bar there. A circle like this is the confidence in the product expressed as number of test cases passed simply. And so with this aggregated view, we also can provide some kind of time window so you can view the things you are most interested in. In the interactive tool, it's possible to click on an item and get some more information about the aggregation, and you can also drill down to the individual events. And we use this mostly as a research platform to show how different types of use cases for visualization can be realized. There is an old version of this that has been used within Ericsson, that's no more, and that's more or less history now. It would of course be extremely nice to evaluate if there was any good use at all, or just a fancy thing to work with. Axis and the University of Gothenburg have taken another view. So these vertical lines are timestamps. I think they are seconds. Can correct me if I'm wrong. And these are the events arriving in real time on these time instances with different color codings. So this is shown in real time, so you can monitor what's happening. It's also possible to use the traces. I don't know if you have done any further development. Looking at you.
I think there is something ongoing, or they have just finished, where they were focusing on the visual part of the cognitive part of showing the events and so on, other than just colors, trying to make it more accessible, because this is just like something pretty to watch, not very useful. So they are going that direction, trying to make it a bit more useful. But the initial thing was to just see, can we monitor the Eiffel bus in real time and actually visualize it?
Yeah, that was the monitoring more than investigating. So there are different approaches, and we have been trying to join up with the visualization experts we have at Campus Norrköping, but unfortunately our main contact there got sick and now he left LIU. We also had a PhD student coming in that we thought this can be a good start to be acquainted with a large part of the CI/CD flow, but that student was denied entrance to Sweden after 9 months investigations. So I don't include the security service in my evening prayers, if I can say so. More interesting, from at least from an academic point of view, is that we have been starting looking into different type of information needs that you really would like to ask full-fledged continuous integration flow with sources from different tools. And this was part of your thesis, Azim, and you first did an interview-based investigation, and you found 27 different needs that could be categorized and prioritized according to how important they are, if they occur very frequently, and the time it normally takes to process such a question. And the top 3 were: how much confidence do we have in the release to deploy to customers? Is the given feature ready to release to customers? Is the bug fix ready to release to customers? So it's very much about, have we passed everything? Then you recently made an observation-based study, which is not published yet, but there we find 39 information needs instead. And if we have a little look on the different categories, with the interviews, people were talking about testing, which test cases have been run, code and commit is where did my code go, confidence levels, as we just saw, a little bit about bugs, what bugs are fixed before this release, and some types of artifacts created. With the observation, however, we got much into configuration of different setups and the seeded jobs, such as which jobs fail often. We have the testing infrastructure, asking about what hardware was deployed on these things, but also trends. Do we see a lot of flaky tests recently? And also some of the release and deployment. Interesting observation right now is that we don't have anything on bugs in the observation part, and not on the confidence level either. So we have to think about that. That's what we are doing right now, trying to analyze why we have the difference. We only have a 25% overlap. This might be due to the different types of audience. I mean, for the interviews we discussed with people like you, leaders, project leaders, technical experts, observation was more people on the floor and their information needs. And our current ideas are to go from there to make some kind of queries for the database, so we can have these as use cases, perhaps find easier ways to answer them. We have considered, but this is very speculative, and it was a result of Emil and Matthias visiting Linköping University, where my colleague Daniel Barra asked a lot of questions about how the database was organized. And his experience was that you might perhaps decouple the query engines from the storage to get more optimization on querying the graph database. So we will continue that dialogue and see if something opens. That was information needs. A little bit about process mining, because we can see a clear case for defining common sub-process as in the nice flow, in the information-rich flow of Eiffel. We didn't manage to get a master thesis this year, but I had two guys at a company called Sectra, very good students who got almost the same task. They were able to record key pressures in a medical device where people investigated and analyzed X-ray pictures. And they used three very common minors, the alpha minor, something called inductive minor, and heuristics minor. Whatever they did, they have very hard finding interpretable models. They could find occurring things. I show you how the significance, but it was almost impossible for a human to find something useful. They were thinking if we can find commonalities, we can redesign our tools so we support these things better. They tried with a lot of pre-process filtering, and I should say that I had these students before. They are very good and ambitious, so they tried everything, and they couldn't find a large significant effect. However, they made a little prototype workbench based on one of these notebooks, and where the users themselves, the user interface people could select different analysis method and select different parameters. Then they could really play around with that and did also find a few processes that are worth continuing with. But of course, it can't compare to Eiffel. So the max data set they used were 240,000 events, key pressures. A little bit about the results. On the horizontal axis, you find something called simplicity, a metric for the complexity of the graph showing the process. And we have the fitness, how well the mined processes really worked on the vertical scale. And you can see that it's quite easy to squeeze in high fitness, but then there's a simplicity. Observe that this starts with at 0.5, but still it's not that easy to find good ones. The alpha minor has a much easier lightweight language to display the different forms, so they could very easily make something simple, but it didn't fit with anything. So if we do something similar with Eiffel, I think we should maybe think or accept that the patterns we find can be quite artificial compared to human mind. And my last slide is something we have discussed also about predicting upcoming events in Eiffel protocols to try to find patterns where we have processes and the likely continuation of that. One good reason of this can be to allow for batching different commits to be more resource efficient, so that we don't start big simulations on expensive hardware before we even know about that. Some possible techniques can be to use graph neural networks. It's quite obvious how you can define an Eiffel flow into a graph. We have also discussed with people at conferences, so it's extremely preliminary. We'll also try to use small language models, the large language models such as ChatGPT and so on, to see if we can make some sensible prediction. But I think this has to wait we will continue with some students projects. We have recruited a new PC student. Their visa is expected around December 1st. We've taken it from there. So this, and in Software Center, we always run projects in 6 months sprints. So this means that for the coming sprint, we will work with perhaps some student projects, and Sim and I will continue analyzing the information in each result. So we are, as you see, researching around the use, how you can evaluate and work with Eiffel rather than inventing interesting thing about Eiffel. I don't think we have the competence there simply. And so we say that we are in the Eiffel fan club. And we have no members in the technical committee. But we like to come and visit these events. Thank you.
Questions to Kristian or Asim, since you're here as well? About this?
Yeah, Asim is our expert.